welcome everyone. Today we are doing a webinar on saving time and reducing stress. And that is mostly to do with running your practice. So yeah, and different pieces of Noterro to help use it better. Yeah, and so I'm joined today with Nick. He'll be taking you through all the details, and I'm Ryan. I'm the other co-founder of Noterro, and I'll just be here as well, just answering questions. Yeah, so today we're going to cover a few things. So time-saving tips for charting and billing, as well as some commonly overlooked features in Noterro that we think are super helpful, and we just want to be aware of them. Ways to streamline your communication and operations, and then, like I said, we'll do a live Q&A at the end. So when it comes to charting, we want to just bring some attention to snippets, which Nick will show all of these, but snippets being the ability to have a whole library of commonly used, paragraphs, phrases, sentences, acronyms, to populate your notes quicker, using duplicating notes and just using that properly, using the Noterro Scribe AI feature, for turning your verbal instructions into an actual clinical note. And then another AI feature, which is form summarization, to summarize the forms and any key insights. As well, we'll cover payment methods and ensuring that you're using them properly, and processing payments and using the quick pay feature. As well, some overlooked features that often we think are important to be aware of is intake form automations, customizing reports, or even using some reports that are already pre-configured in your clinic, using patient labels in various ways, and customizing your notifications to your patients. With that being said, Nick is going to take us through these, and yeah, he'll dig right in. So I will stop sharing.
Okay, let me just switch over here. And Ryan just confirmed that you can see my screen.
We're good to go.
Okay, so perfect. So part of the reason with this, the webinar is we realize, talking to a lot of customers, is that we release a lot of features and sometimes they get overlooked or they're missed. We're also consumers of software, and we realize when there's product updates, oftentimes you don't have the capacity to even learn a new feature. And so sometimes you see buttons and sometimes you see features and you just aren't sure what they are or don't have time to look at them or use them. And we do, small little incremental changes, but sometimes these small changes have a great impact on a lot of the clinics. So we're going to start, we're actually going to start settings. I'm not going to overburden you with settings, but we recently, let me just switch back to my admin role here just very quickly. So we recently updated the calendar settings, and we've allowed you to display the days of the week that you want. So often we heard that, I don't work Sundays or the weekends, Sundays and Saturdays, so I want to turn those days off. So you can now turn those days off, as well as the time slot duration. So right now our calendar is only set to 15 minutes. Well, you can change that to 5 minutes if you wanted to. And so there's increments in the dropdown. I know you can't see it, but there's increments in the dropdown that go, every 5 minutes. So I'll just leave mine at 15 minutes and hit save. So let me just switch back to my practitioner view, and that's where we're going to be spending most of our time. So again, small little changes. You may or may not have noticed it or any notification that comes through, because there's, again, realizing that there's a lot of stuff happening, not just with our software, but just in general, of the changes that come about with software. And just the changes in general seem to be at light speed, that things seem to be changing. So let's take a look at some of the calendar, and some of these might be obvious features, and really what I'm trying to do is just show you an easier way to just go through a normal day that you'd be seeing your clients or your patients. And before we do that, we do have another little view here that some might not even realize, and this is the agenda view. So with the agenda view, it's just another exposure of your day here, and you can update the status here. The icons are a bit more visible. We've put some color application to this one, so you know that this one is a form that's been completed. and here that there's no invoices. This is already in draft notes. So you can see at a top level view, and easier to see than in a small calendar view, we have this agenda view. And so just another view that you may have missed and not realize what these three lines represent. So just we're going to point at some things that may be really obvious to some of you, and some of you may not have even known that there's a calendar view. So we'll start with Larry Fine, and typically, someone's come in as booked, and this is yet another update that we did, and we exposed more statuses, and so you would mark them as arrived or canceled, and so canceled is a new status that we have, and you can confirm with the client. So when you hit cancel, it removes it from the calendar, but you still have visibility of your canceled appointments. So I can show my canceled appointments, and it has visibility, and I can update that status, and I can bring it back to arrive. So when the person's here, I'm going to mark them as arrived. So this would be a normal workflow. And then you'd go to add the invoice, and then you have an unpaid invoice. And we'll look at just two little features that get confused and sometimes, again, overlooked. I'll click on that in a minute here. And then add note, which everyone is familiar with. I've added a special type of note template. And so, as you know, you can create your own different types of templates. One called upper back and neck, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. And so I have an upper back and neck template. And I have this record. You may or may not know what this record is about, and we'll take a look at that again very shortly. And we have this summarization. So these two features are AI-driven features, and I'll explain them further. So coming back to the invoice, so if we look at this unpaid invoice, we have this quick pay. And so you might not realize what this quick pay does. And quick pay exposes all the types of payment methods that you have. If they had credit, or if you had the Square terminal set up, you can pay it directly. Now the quick pay assumes that you're paying the invoice off in full. And so if you weren't paying the invoice off in full, you'd have to go through the payment method. But by just clicking on one of this, the invoice is paid in full, and you avoid all those steps. So it's a handy little feature if the invoice is being paid off in full. If you're not paying off in full, I mean, you can partially pay it if you want by changing this value here. I just want to show you something with the add payment method that sometimes gets confused here. And so if I had a credit card on file, I would just click the credit card on file. There'd be an indication that what type of card it is, and I can click it, and it's going to be charged, in this case, to Square. But what people get confused at is they see this other payment method. It just means I'm marking the invoice paid as Visa. And so when they click this and they hit pay, they sometimes get confused, and they don't understand why this Visa transaction didn't go through Square. All I did was I'm just marking the transaction, literally, that just said a Visa payment, and it wasn't through Square. So I just wanted to bring that up more as a means of, there's some confusion around that payment method. So if I go back here, and we're going to look at the note here. So I have a clinical note template that I used, upper back and neck. I have this record button. So if I click record, all I have to do is, if I click this microphone, I just have to explain in natural language of what was performed during the treatment, how the person presented, any home care exercises. I could put ums and ahs and whatever I want. And once I scribe, we'll send it off for processing, and then we'll return it. So the idea is that you're in between maybe clients, so they're either getting off the table, or they're still doing their exercises, or whatever they're doing in between. It takes a minute and a half to describe it, and then you're done your note taking at that point. So that's the idea of recording a scribe here. And I'll show you what the workflow is at the end of the day. So once you send your scribe off for processing, you don't have to worry about it. And at the end of the day, you can review all your scribes in one workflow, and then push them all to notes. And it's a pretty simple workflow, and it can save you about 90% of your time just recording. Now, the next section here is the summarization. So they've completed this athletic therapy intake form, and this is kind of a neat little feature. Instead of reading through a form and looking at all the check boxes and how they answered everything, you can just click summarize. And the summarize is neat because it only takes a couple seconds here, and you're going to see that it's going to summarize the form. And you can see the patient has a history of several medical conditions. They have high blood pressure. So these are check boxes that I checked on the form here. This summary can be copied, and it can be dropped into the subjective section, for instance, on a note. And I'll show you how that works when we get to the notes. This here is just an insight. So it's just an insight, basically bringing attention to something that you may have overlooked in that form itself. So super handy little feature. And again, it's just allows you to just read it in natural language, and you don't have to look at all the check boxes. And it nicely summarizes that form for you. So that's form summarization. So if I click on Peter Pan here as an example, if I move down further, you can see I've already scribed. And so this here indicates that on August 20th, I already recorded my note. So if I click on this, for example, this little scribe feature is going to come up, and I want to look at this from the home perspective or on the dashboard. So again, if you can imagine, you're in between and all you're doing is talking, minute and a half, and that's all it takes. And then at the end of the day, you simply come to your scribe. So these are the pendant scribes, and I've obviously done this ahead of time. And I just review all my scribes. And what's really cool about this is you can see this is the primary complaint. I didn't say the primary complaint is. I literally just talked about how they presented, what I did, what tests I did, and it assembled all this in pieces. And then you can push the pieces into any note template that you have. So you create your own note template, and you can see where it says add to, it says do not add. Again, you can't see my drop down, but this is maybe a subjective complaint, and I can move it into the subjective section. So once you add it, once you push it into a note template section, we're going to remember that. And this primary complaint section is always going to be moved into the subjective section. It doesn't have to be the subjective section. You can create any note template, and we can move this content in any question type that is a long question. And so it remembers where you want to put all this information. And so this is with the current symptoms. This is how they present it again. And you can see it. This only I think it took a minute and 32 seconds to put all this information in. And again, you can move this to any section that you want. So additional problem areas. This is an objective analysis because I'm given some specific findings here. And then again, these are my objective findings, which will move into my objective section. And these are my assessment or analysis. And so I can push this onto a note. So you don't have to do this drop down each time. This is the plan. And again, I didn't put this in any order. I just spoke just as I naturally would speak. And the nice thing is I can hit add and finalize, and then I'm done. So all those drop downs and everything, you only have to really do once, and then we're going to understand where to push those values in. And so the next time you open up that note template, you just have to hit add and finalize. But the nice thing is that you can create a really nice note template and then push this in, and you never have to open a note again if you don't want to. So you don't have to use all the features that Noterro has for their notes. You can create something very simple, and your workflow becomes very routine. And so creating a note, as we know, is probably one of the biggest things, but we've reduced it to just the whole note process for seeing 4 to 6 people a day goes from maybe an hour, depends on how much you takes you to chart, to a couple minutes, and then you just hit add and finalize, and your note is done. And then you just do the same process with this. And I did not it looks like there's a lot of content here. And again, just in this case, this was only a minute long. So it's a pretty handy feature to have if you're going through Scribe. So let me go back to the calendar. And again, we'll be taking questions on this if you have any questions on any of these workflows. So I'll go back to the calendar. We looked at Scribe as one way of creating a note. Another way of creating a note, and the idea is that you would create a really good note. So you could use Scribe, or you can use, all the features with our clinical notes and the templates that you can build. And the idea is you make one really good note, and I add a note, and I can just duplicate that note. And so here's my last note. You can see it's July 21st. And so I'm just going to grab this one. I'm not going to grab a template, and I can duplicate this note. Even though there's content here, the idea is that you just add, edit, or delete any of the content. So you just do a quick update. So that's another quick way of doing notes, is using that duplicate feature. You can also record. And so you can record additional information if you want to record a Scribe as well. And these actions are on a note. So that's probably the in terms of a workflow, that's the easiest way to get through your day, creating those notes. So let's take a look at the note themselves and some of the features that we have within the notes. So if we go back to, I believe it was Larry that I created, the upper back and neck. So let's take a look at that upper back and neck. So this is a pretty simple note template that I created. So I have my info panel here. I've added a widget for the forms because I want that view summary. And so, for example, when I summarized it, I can view the summary. This is the same view that I had from the appointment, and I just hit copy the summary, um, close this, and I can drop this into the objective section. I can drop this anywhere I want, but this is really the objective. So I just did a paste here. And you can clean up, I have, I can clean up some of the grammar if I want as well. So it's up to you on what you want to do. So quickly, I added the subjective section. What was really interesting about this note template, I called it upper back and neck. And so in the upper back and neck, I created a template already built in with my treatment plan. So if you have a standardized treatment plan, I didn't have to type any of this stuff in here. This is what I'm going to do. If you're doing things over and over again repetitively in a note, I can create a treatment plan. So I created a note called upper back and neck, knowing that this is what I'm going to do. These are going to be my goals. I'm following the same procedure each time I treat someone. This is the treatment interventions that I do. I'm not saying this is appropriate or not appropriate, but I'm just saying is that it's another way that you could quickly create a note. Now, the downside of this is this content can't be edited. So you've added it to a note template as a text. If you don't want to do that and you say, well, next, I do want to make some changes, then you can use what we call snippets. And I don't have a box called plan because it was already, the content was already here. So, but if this was my plan, I can use snippets as an example. And snippets are just any phrases. I think Ryan alluded to it already. Snippets are any phrases or anything that you would use repetitively over and over on a note. So you can use a phrase like, the client or patient came in complaining of low back pain. You can create that phrase if you wanted to, or you can create a treatment plan. So there's a treatment plan for low back, or if I know these uh, these shortcuts here are these are what I've typed in, and I'll show you how I've created these snippets. So this is what this is what I've created. So this is the content I put in here. So if I start typing in UB, I can see this is upper back, and so I just click this, and it's put all the information. This just happens to be a small text film. I'll just put it in here instead, so you can see what this looks like. Upper back. I think it's going to do the same thing. Oh, there it goes. So there's my whole treatment plan. So there's my treatment plan that I can put in here, and I can drop in a note anytime. So you can create them as snippets, or you can create them as text ahead of time on a template. The other thing that you can do is if you created a really good note and go, that'd be a really good snippet, I can just copy this information. So I can copy it, and then I could add a snippet directly from a note. And so I can just paste this in here, and I can put whatever my shortcut is. And so this is the content. So there's a number of ways that you can do this. When you're creating notes, you can add snippets, or you can drop them in when you have your snippet library. And the library is done here. I'll just show you where it is. It's just in your practitioner profile, and it's your snippets here. If you're in a multi-prac clinic and you're adding new, where it says Noterro snippets, you'll see all the other practitioners that have snippet libraries, and it'll be similar to this. And so you guys can share your snippets. So if people are creating really really good snippets with a lot of content, you can be adding your snippets from other libraries within your clinic as well. So handy little feature, quick little feature that you can create notes with. Let me just jump back into the admin side. And I want to go to the template page. So these are some of the things that aren't necessarily, they're because they're part of the settings, they're not necessarily known, because when you're setting up your clinic, you might, very infrequently go to these settings pages. So if I look at templates, I'm going to go to that clinical note that I was talking about, upper back, and I'll just show you how I constructed that and this is the text that I put in here. So the text, I added a text field, and this is the treatment plan. So again, you can put a lot of content into notes, or some partial content into notes, anywhere when you're creating your templates, and the content is already built into the notes, and so you don't have to worry about ever adding the notes again, or that portion of the note again. And then when you are building your notes, I added the widget forms, because I wanted to have the accessibility of that summarization on the form itself. So I can grab, so when you're creating your note templates, you might want to consider putting that form widget on there, so you have access to your forms, and so you can take advantage of that summarization feature. On the templates page, excuse me, client notifications, these are templated out by us, and so they're appropriate templates, but there's sometimes you might want to update, and people don't realize that you can update all the notifications that are sent on your behalf. They're branded towards your logo in your clinic, so that it looks like they're coming from you. And so it's important to take a look at these templates and make sure that the wording is appropriate. So for example, if I look at the appointment booked, we tell you the timing. Excuse me, the timing just means that when it's being sent out. And so when an appointment is booked, the timing can be instant, and that notification goes out to the client or the patient to let them know the details of the appointment. And so, for example, it says, hello, client's first name. This is just templated out. This is what you'll see in your clinic. You might want to add additional information. So there might be things that you want to talk about, of the maybe the parking, as an example, to let people know that you need to park on the street or at the back of the building, or whatever you want to put in here that you would put in a notification. You can add that. And these green bubbles represent variables, and some people don't understand how variables work. So for example, it says client's first name. I can insert a variable where I can put clients. I'm just inserting a variable, and I'm going to grab the client's last name, and so it'll say, hello, John Smith. So contextually, the notification is accurate to the person that's receiving it. And so you can take advantage of the variables. You can take advantage of some of the formatting tools here, and really customize these notifications to give it your voice. So these are, again, just templated out notifications that don't necessarily have your voice and how you would type out an email notification going to your clients or your patients. The other thing excuse me, the other thing I want to draw attention to is that when if you're on the plus or max plan, you have, or on legacy, you may have email, text, and voice messages. We've already set this to 24 hours. And so you might want to look at these, because you don't want to bombard someone with 24-hour notification. And the other thing that you need to take into consideration is this 24 hours. This is so important. So I always tell people, set this on at least on the 24-hour clock, because if I set this email to say 12 hours, and if their appointment is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're going to get an email reminder at 3 a.m. in the morning. And so you have to be aware of when those notifications are going to go out relative to the appointment time. So you don't want to necessarily change this from 24. So if you want to change this, you might want to do it to 48 hours. And I would strongly recommend that you do change these to values that at least offset, because you don't necessarily want to bombard someone. And with the text message, I have seen people set this to say 2 or 3 hours. So it's a quick reminder just prior to their appointment. If you don't want some of these reminders to be defaulted on, you can also default those off. So you can just turn this off if you want. So just further optimization that you could be doing in your clinic. And that's the template section. Next, I want to move to there's another little feature that's pretty powerful, and it's labels. And so I'll go to the client section. And so we've had labels for years, and labels are an interesting way that I can filter my list if I wanted to. If I want to see everyone at Blue Cross, I can see everyone with Blue Cross. I can click that, and it just goes back to the normal listing. But you can create any type of labels that you want, and these are to segment out a list of your patients or your clients. And just pay attention to this one I called premium clients, because you could take advantage of this premium client label if you have the max or the plus plan. And I'll show you how that works for online booking. So again, I have something called premium labels. I can add any label type here, and in this case, I can add additional labels if I want. So these are the 4 labels that I have in my clinic. So if I go to my settings again, I'll go to my base setup. and I'll go to my service section, and I'll go to personal training because I already have this set up. So personal training, it's in my athletic therapy category. If I go down to my online booking setting section, I have this portal restriction labels, and this is really good. So any client that has this premium client label, they're the only ones that can view that service once they're logged in. So this service will not be visible in your web portal. So if you want to allow access to certain services for certain clients, you can attach labels, and so they have to be logged in, and they're the only ones that can view and book this service. So if you don't have this label, you won't be able to view and book this. We have the opposite of this, and if you wanted to add a label to deny someone to book in, so someone who logs into the clinic and you don't want them to see the service, you can put a label, actually deny booking or viewing the label. Okay, so there's just two ways to see that, but you have to be logged in as well. This one here, it just blocks it even if you're not logged in. The only people will be able to see it is someone who's logged in at that point. So again, a pretty handy little feature, especially if you want to segment out your list of clients, and only give them access. So if you that's one use case. Other people have used it for other ways, but that's basically on how that would work. The other is form automation. Most people are aware of this form automation. In this case, every time this service gets booked, whether it's online or whether it's within the clinic, an athletic therapy intake form is going to be sent out immediately. And this is a feature probably we've added this 6 to 8 months ago, and some people don't realize this. And this prevents the form from being sent out every time it gets booked. And basically, it's saying don't send the client this form if they have one sent already. So it's an outstanding form or a completed form. We won't send this form to them. Okay, so you just have to be aware of the form automations because that saves a lot of time of sending out forms manually. So we'll do it automatically for you. Um, let's just want to move to one other part of the platform that often gets missed or overlooked, and that's the report section. Um, and I just want to just show you that that we have some of the things that you can do with reports. So a lot of these reports are configured by Noterro, and then we have some filters on them. Whereas the events report and the practitioner, or sorry, the sales report are two reports that you can actually customize yourself, and you can create custom reports. So these are really handy. We'll take a look at the events report. There is a video on showing you how to configure this. I'm not going to go into any detail here, but you can see I have a report called canceled. And these events reports are based on calendar events, just to be explicit what we're looking at. So these are the filters I already have set. It's set to canceled. And if I wanted to also capture, say, no show and canceled, I can show that in one report, and I can update this. And so it'll update the filters here. So these are the filters across the top, and you can see it's by all practitioners. So if I want to show all the canceled reports, I can turn on any of these practitioners, and it could be a canceled report for a specific practitioner. And you can create all your canceled reports to see how many canceled appointments they're getting if you wanted to do that. So these are the filters, and these are the data that you can pull in. So any of these can be pulled in. So if I want the location as an example of that, I can also pull that in there. There's also another handy little feature here, and it's the number of future appointments. So I can turn a number of future appointments. I can grab a practitioner, and I can see how many future appointments they have booked for that patient. And if it's zero and they have basically a lot of zeros of future appointments, you could take a look at this and try to understand why your one practitioner is not getting rebooked. Is it something that they're doing, or there could be all sorts of reasons? But these are handy little reports that you can take a look. So you can take a look at a lot of data, and you customize what you want. And in the sorry, I didn't mean to collect it. In the report section, the sales report works much the same. It reports on every line item on an invoice, and you can create as many different types of reports from the sales. So two reports that are really handy at looking at data and understanding of, from a perspective of the appointments being booked or the financial health of a clinic. It becomes very handy, and a lot of times people don't realize that we have these two reports. So those are the features that I want to go over today. I will pass it back to Ryan, and we'll just open it up to any question and answers that we can provide for you.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Nick. Just
So the chat is open, and so if you just have any questions, you can just type directly in the chat, and we will answer any of your questions.
and I don't see any questions.
Let's make sure. Yeah, the chat is open for everyone. Maybe no one has any questions.
Nope.
No message. Oh, no, thank you. That was really thorough. Oh, here. How about adding a label to show the insurance? Yep, you can use that for insurance. And it shows up on the calendar as well. The other label that I didn't talk about, alerts, you can also use alerts as well. Alerts don't group them, where you can group um, your or you can segment the list out by using labels, and alert doesn't do that. Is Noterro HKI? No, we don't have the ability to do bill HKI, but you can track your HKI billings if you wanted to in Noterro, but we don't bill directly through HKI. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up on these. Are you able to show for the e-claims? And what are the credits for? E-claims, we don't have time now to display e-claims, but there are, depends on what country you're in. We do have it broken down to the American and Canadian for e-claims. And so on our YouTube channel, if you want to go to our YouTube channel, there are really comprehensive videos on e-claims. It is literally another webinar just on e-claims. What are credits for? Credits are for they're consumed mainly for the AI features for Noterro Scribe and form summarization at this point.
And specifically, Noterro Scribe is billed at, what does it work out to? About 16 cents a minute US.
Yeah.
And the summarization is 5 cents per summarization. That's what it works out to.
The scribe that I demoed probably cost it cost 28 cents American. So that one I was showing initially 28 cents, and the other one was 16 cents. So at the end of the day, I'd rather pay 28 cents and save 15 minutes of my time. So what about seeing many people in a day, the client being paid by the faculty, for example? What's the best way for? Thank you so much for the webinar. So I think you're talking about, it would be a report, handling a report in the sales report where you could segment out. I think that's what you're talking about. So I would do a custom sales report to pay people within a larger clinic. I would do a custom sales report by practitioner to capture their sales for any given time period, because you can filter the time period. So I would use the custom sales report. And again, I didn't spend a lot of time because it wasn't just about a sales report. So if you want to go to our YouTube channel, there is a way of, there is a video on how to do custom sales reports. The fees for Summarize and Scribe, Ryan just touched about that. Can I upload intake forms? Not right now. There's no ability to upload an intake form to a PDF. If there's something that you want us to upload as a template that you think other people could take advantage of, we contact support, and we'd be happy to recreate that form if it can be done with our form builder. Internal note for a client: is there a way to have this displayed for every appointment for this client? I'm not sure. Do you understand that?
No, like as if there's like a default internal note for every appointment for a client. There isn't. You could use an alert that would function similarly, but not an internal note. Can I summarize an intake form? That's what the form summarization is. You just click summarize and it will summarize it and give you the insights.
if I missed any, sorry, are you going to post the video? Yes, it should be in the should be getting a reply within the next couple hours from the webinar, and the link will be in there as well. It'll be posted to our YouTube channel. Thank you. That was great. Can I summarize an intake? Yeah, summarize that intake form. That's exactly what that summarization did. And again, the insights. I could have created a better form, but it also provides some insights that you miss if someone's complaining of, say, rapid weight loss. It'll flag that to say you might want to take a look at that. With respect to notifications, is there a way to auto send them if it's been a time since the last treatment? The auto send is probably what you're talking about is a treatment notification. That's an older notification that will be updated at some point in a much more streamlined workflow as opposed to manually sending it. The spy uses its own software. Is there a macro? Oops, that jumped. Where did that go?
Yeah. So there's no way, or there's no API or no way to automatically populate Noterro from another piece of software. You could do an import, so you can import patients periodically into Noterro, but it's not automatic.
Is there a way to add recurring info to an invoice yet? You could add. There is on. It's not necessarily you'd have to update it though. We do have a note on the bottom that you can put, like, it would be more of thanks for paying the invoice or something like that. But you could theoretically use that. It's in the billing section, and it's in the footer, so you could put that in there, and then you'd have to
That's
remember to go back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the only problem. You'd have to remember to go back to that invoice because your vacation, you might be back from your vacation and it still may say there. Also, is there a way to make an invoice for no-show appointments so it shows up on the invoice right now? No, there might be a help article as a workaround, but we don't have a specific method to show no-shows on an invoice. There's no workflow that we have, a direct workflow in Noterro. Is there a way to send it? Oh, I just lost that one too. Did you see it?
Yeah.
No,
So is
there.
there a way to send mass emails? The answer is MailChimp integration. So we're integrated with MailChimp, um, and it synchronizes your list. And then MailChimp is like mass email software that can do many, many things. We just keep your list synchronized so that you can run MailChimp email campaigns from there.
Circling back to eClaims, does that include WSIP here in Canada? Yeah, you can. We're not integrated, so we have direct integration with TELUS Health, but not with WSIB. But you can track claims from start to finish. It doesn't matter, what the claim type is. WSIB, MVA, doesn't really matter. You can track claims from start to finish. Is there a way to search by type of transaction, i.e., orthotics that are ordered once per year? Can we search for anyone who has not ordered them?
No, I don't see how you would do that. The closest
Um,
you could get is you'd run a sales report, an annual sales report, open it, download it, and then open it in a spreadsheet. And then you probably could do a formula in there to do that, but you wouldn't be able to do it completely within Noterro. But that'd be the closest you'd get to doing that.
or you could theoretically set up labels for in the future. So it could be each month, and it could be like January 2026, and you could assign a label to that person, and you can run a label report, and it would show all your January 26. And so that's another way that workaround that you could do for your orthotics. Might be a bit easier as well. And then it would pull up, all your January 26th that people need orthotics. That might be a bit an easier way of doing it. Is there more messages? Thank you. Have we caught up? Sorry if we missed any, and they're coming in pretty
I think you
quickly.
might have gotten some private messages I didn't see, so I didn't. But those are all the ones I see.
Okay. Well, thanks for attending. And as I said, it's going to be posted to YouTube. Once we get the rendering of this, and then it'll also be in the email notification that you get.
Awesome. Okay,
Oh,
great.
wait, do templates exist for acupuncture? I haven't seen any. So the scribe was intended for communication with. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that. So scribe you can do with inpatient person. Yes, you could. So it understands the two sides of the communication, who's speaking, and it will return the appropriate. It'll turn the appropriate notes of who's saying what. So when they're given a subjective and you're given an objective as an example, it will understand the difference. What is the benefit of using an insurance feature and just billing them through Talus Sun Life? So the benefit is that you actually can track claims from start to finish. If you're doing a lot of claims, it becomes very difficult to juggle, the status of all the claims and when money is coming in, because you can apply, as an example, bulk payments to claims as they come through, because oftentimes you just don't get, a single check, say from Blue Cross, for it's not, one invoice and one payment from the insurer. So this gives you the ability to track claims a lot easier if you're doing a lot of claims. Is there a way to customize breaks? No, not at this point. I'm not sure what you'd be looking for customization. Did I touch? I haven't seen templates, acupuncture templates. If you're looking at for notes, there is a really nice way of doing acupuncture notes using our tagger, because you can store the acupuncture points on a diagram. It will remember it. So if you did, and again, I'm not an acupuncturist, but this might be a point or not, I'm not sure. Like gallbladder 23, if you put that on a diagram, it will save that. And so the next time you go to use that diagram, it will remember where gallbladder 23 is. So you might want to take a look at the note tagger as a way of doing notes. And I think that answered all that. Okay, excellent. So if your questions weren't answered, just drop us a note in support, and we will definitely get to any of your questions that we missed. And if we did, I apologize. They were coming in pretty quickly. So thank you again for attending. And as we said, we will be publishing this to our YouTube channel, as well as the email that you get from us.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nick.